Michelle, for sharing your story. That was very, very great. Now we will hear a few words from Congressman Kim. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you everyone for coming on out today, and then just thank you again to Michelle and to others for sharing your voice, sharing your stories. They are so critically important to reminding us what's at stake and what is it that we're trying to get done. What is it that brought you here today? What is it that brought me here today to talk with you? When I hear Michelle's story, what strikes me is about how personal this is for so many people here in this room. For me, my story, my family story starts back with my father. My father grew up in South Korea. He was raised in an orphanage. He was a survivor of polio. And because of his disability, that orphanage abused him and treated him so poorly that he ended up running away, and he lived homeless for most of his childhood. My father left broken on the streets, without care to be able to manage his polio, his disability, to be able to get the care that he needed, left alone. And I look at him still to this day, and I see in him that same person that bears those scars, bears that type of abuse that he suffered through. And while I see in him that which is broken and that which struggles so much in ways that I can never imagine, I also see in him someone who had opportunities given to him. I saw how America took a chance on him and brought him in and gave him an education, gave him some opportunities. And my father, who grew up in an orphanage, grew up homeless on the streets in South Korea, ended up getting a PhD in genetics here in America. In his story, in the same way it is in Michelle's story, I draw inspiration from people who are persevering, people who show tremendous grit in what it is they're trying to do, and bring us on board to build a coalition to address this. When as a son of my father, and hearing these stories and seeing how much it affected his life, I sought to dedicate myself and my life to try to address these issues. The very first job I ever had, working in politics, working in these issues, was on homelessness. When I was a student at the University of Chicago, I worked at the Coalition for the Homeless, the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. And I spent a couple years there working, and it was such an incredibly important organization, working across the city of Chicago, across the state of Illinois, pioneering a lot of ideas about what are the comprehensive ways in which we can address this. I think for me, it was about connecting me to see how the situation and how these complex problems are manifesting in our own cities, and seeing what it is that we can try to do to address them. Understanding what are the root causes of these problems. I remember part of my job was to talk to people who are homeless parents in Chicago, and asking them a number of questions about the types of services that we could provide. And I remember one question in particular was this question that literally just asked, how did this happen? How did you become homeless? And when I asked this question to person after person who was experiencing homelessness, their stories started to blur together, because you just hear them say, well, I was working, and then one month my husband got sick, or one month my wife got sick, or my kid got sick, and I had to choose between paying for their health care or paying for our rent. And that's why we're here today. I would hear these threads, these problems that were manifesting with people who just wanted to live a life of dignity, live a life of decency, be able to find a way in which they can be able to provide for their family. That's all they were asking. And I remember trying to find ways of meeting so many leaders. An incredible leader I know for me, the head of the Coalition of the Homeless, John Donahue, was someone I learned a tremendous amount from about how to frame this issue. And I remember one discussion that we were at about affordable housing in Chicago. There was a new development going up, and there was a lot of concerns amongst the developers and some of the neighbors about having affordable housing there. And I remember one gentleman stood up and said, "Well, I don't want a homeless person living next to me." And then my boss, John Donahue, stood up and he said, "Well, look, if they're living next to you, they're not homeless." Change that mindset, trying to understand how we frame this, that we understand that homelessness is a state of existence, a state of being in that way, but it's not permanent. It is not affect, it is not a homeless person, it is a person experiencing homelessness, that there are ways that we can change this in the way that I see how it changed for my father, and changed for my father, not because he was able to pick himself up by the bootstraps, but because people and programs and policies were put into place that gave him opportunities, gave him places to be able to build on that. I am here today because I want to work with all of you. I want to take this opportunity that I have to be able to represent my home district in New Jersey. I want to take this humbling opportunity that I have to be able to work this job, to try to be able to influence the direction of our country, and say that addressing housing and homelessness and supporting those across our country that are struggling and suffering, that this is something that must be a priority for our nation, it must be a priority for our Congress, and it must be a priority for each and every one of us. That we can't take anything for granted. We can't assume that these problems will fix themselves, that these only will be able to move forward if we all trying to find a way to find the way that we can have an impact on that. So I stand before you humbly as a public servant that wants to work with each and every one of you. I stand here humbly as the congressman and representative of the District of New Jersey that Michelle is from, and I commit to her, as I commit to everybody in this room right now, that I will do everything I humanly can to be able to help support you, Michelle, and help support everybody in this room who's struggling, and everyone across the country. What I need from you is your continued engagement, your energy, your strategy, your ideas, your stories, things that can help me be an advocate here in the halls of Congress that is too often detached from the problems and the struggles that Americans experience each and every day. That is my commitment to you today, and I look forward to continuing to work with you now and into the future. Thank you so much.